name is Amber Moore, and today we're going to hear from Alyssa Nolte, who's the creator of TruVue CXi platform. So welcome, Alyssa. Thanks for spending some time today to introduce everybody to this wonderful platform that you have lovingly created. So I'm just going to dive right into some questions that I've got. One of the first questions I have is really, what is CXi? How did it originate? Where did it come from? All those goodies.
Yeah, so in order to answer this question, I really have to take you back a couple of years. In 2017, we were hired by a major company, Salesforce.com, to do a brand evaluation for them to help them understand from the perspective of people outside their target market, how do they perceive Salesforce? Did they believe that they brought value to their company? Were they dependable? Were they reliable? And as part of that process, me and the research team created this thing that we called the brand health score. And the brand health score was a simple, easy way to explain how your brand is doing in the marketplace. So that project was a smash success. We had a great time. We learned a lot. And we discovered that, big brands weren't the only ones who could find value in this process. In fact, we could streamline it to a point where even the smallest company could understand the perception of their brand in the marketplace simply by using this tool, this set of questions and this algorithm we invented in order to understand not only how they're doing, but how they're doing over time, what their trends are, and how they compare to their competitors. The natural progression for us was to identify the flip side. When it comes to your customers, how likely are they to be a flight risk? So we started piloting the idea of a flight risk score in 2019 and really trying to dig into what it means to be a customer and to have your finger on the pulse of those customers, to understand what's important to them, what do they value, and most importantly, what is the likelihood that you're not going to get the first shot at the renewal of their business.
Yeah, which is really important to know if you have that first shot or not, because that's gonna tell you a lot about if you're gonna get those renewals and
Right.
definitely the expansions in the future. So, and along those same lines, when we think about businesses that use this platform, and actually send these surveys to their clients and gather out all this data, what do the findings mean when they're looking at that? And you've alluded a little bit to it, but let's talk a little more deeply about, what these findings mean to the people that use it.
When I first started doing research in about 2014, I had this skewed perspective that, there's so much data out there. And of course, you want all of this information. I learned really quickly that leaders and executives and people who have to make really quick, snapped, gut feel decisions really just want to know a couple of key things. What are my customers saying about me, and what should I do about it? So we designed this platform in a way that's focused on being really actionable. So while you might only see one single score or 4 key drivers, what you're not seeing is the churn of data that's happening underneath the surface. All of this information that we're gathering and combining and organizing and analyzing to produce really simple, really easy to understand things. On a scale of 0 to 100, what is your score? Comparing that score to last week, last month, last year, whatever your cadence is to understand and talk to your customers, have you gone up in your customers' eyes? Have you dipped down? Are you missing in specific key areas? So we measure things like your credibility with your customer. Are you bringing value? Do they have a positive perception of their interactions with you? Are they engaged with you and your software or your product or services? And lastly, the most important question that we look at is, when it comes time to renew, how likely are you to get the first shot at their business?
Yeah, I love it. So you started talking a little bit about the technical side of this. Obviously, rolling up our sleeves and digging into it is going to be fairly exciting. So when we, think about all the data that's being captured, the first thing I feel like an average person is going to think is, do I have to be some kind of data analyst to even be able to understand this? What am I going to be looking at? Is this a big, giant Tableau dashboard maybe that I am just not ready to start consuming?
Right.
Do I need to spend a ton of time to even be able to understand it? Is, always a big fear with any of these kinds of platforms. I mean, how would you respond to that question?
A lot of the customers that we work with don't have PhDs in their back pocket in order to use this software. It's really designed to make sure that someone who doesn't have a background in data analytics or doesn't have the capacity to think about this. They have more important things that they need to attend to. So the idea here is to take that guesswork out of the process and give you access to our tried and tested approach to collecting this data, and then also let the technology do the analytics for you so you can focus on doing what matters, which is executing on these findings. Now, a lot of our clients do actually have data teams in place, people who could do this 100% end to end by themselves without us if they wanted to. However, why work harder when you can work smarter? The idea here is to give you kind of that fast track of really good sound science that has been tested and has been validated so that you can focus on answering the questions that are harder, more interesting, more impactful, whatever it is for your business. Let your researchers focus on those things when this can be automated for them, making them more productive and ultimately happier when they don't have to do a bunch of easy or minutia work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to take a second to actually dive into the software, and I've got it pulled up here. So I'm just going to share it on my screen. I'm going to jump right to the overview tab, and it's going to populate here for us. But I would love to take a second to just, kind of prove that out about how, you really don't have to be a data expert to use and appreciate and understand this. Can you take us really quickly kind of through this, maybe primary overview page here?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is on a scale of 0 to 100. There's nothing sneaky or fancy about that. It's just an easy way for you to understand where you fall in terms of your customer experience score. So you'll see at the very top, you'll see an 80. Well, that means as of right now, the average score for this example is 80. Now, as we go over time, you'll see scores populating under Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. That will be able to show you your trend. So let's imagine in Q2, you scored a 50. All of a sudden, you're seeing that number trend down. That might be a red flag to you and your leadership team that something is happening. It could be something happening in your organization with your most important customers or simply in the market. As we go across the bottom, you can see we have 4 key drivers, we call them: sentiment, perception, consideration, and engagement. These are the 4 key areas that we've taken the data and put them into easy to understand, easy to track elements. Sentiment, I always describe this as, what are people saying about you when you're not in the room? Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? Do they have no specific feelings about you whatsoever? This is designed to quantify the way that they feel about you. Perception is, I joke with people, this is the would I have a beer with this company feeling. If we think about it, do people trust us? Do they like us? Do they find that our brand is dependable and reliable? Do they believe that we are bringing value to their organization? Do they think that we're knowledgeable about their industry? Do we deliver products and services that meet their needs? Consideration is one of the most interesting questions. This is kind of like our version of NPS. Instead of asking how likely you would be to recommend this product or service to someone else, we ask a more direct question. How likely am I to get the first shot at your business when it comes time for renewal? We want to know, if I don't have a shot at this business, maybe I can direct my focus elsewhere. Or if this is a must-win deal and I'm not going to have a shot at it, what can I do to intervene? Bring in the big dogs, do a customer experience process, have an executive briefing, whatever it is. How can I make sure that that's a guarantee and not a question mark when it comes time to win the business? Engagement is our version of usage analytics. You can go into your platform and say, hey, this company, this account, this client, however you phrase it, is really using our software. They're logging in every day. We have, 1,000 monthly users here. But this is more looking at are they getting the value that they expected from your experience, from your organization? Are they responsive to your requests for information and your communications? Do you see a noticeable shift in your experience in working with them, an increase or a decrease in tickets? All of those things that are predictive of whether or not a customer is seeing value in your organization, in your software, in your tool, in your services, can be found in engagement.
It's such a good explanation of these. And I do know, of course, that it dives even further into those key drivers here where you have the ability to, to really double click into them, filter on them, those kinds of things. So that's clearly a really big piece of all of the data behind this. Can we talk a little bit about, kind of the buckets of highest and lowest CXI scores and what those might mean to you? Understanding, of course, that this example probably isn't the perfect one to look at, but we can talk about the purpose of it.
So I think it's really important to recognize that we're all being asked to do more with less. I had a conversation with a company a few months ago who was telling me that for 1,700 customer accounts, they had 9 people who were responsible to be their customer success managers. 9 people who couldn't possibly talk to 1,700 customers on a regular basis and really have an understanding and keep their thumb on the pulse of what's going on in that customer. So the idea here is, because we're being asked to do more with less, how can we help you prioritize with precision? So your highest CXI scores, in the examples here, we have Microsoft, Cisco, and NVIDIA, and just a quick disclaimer, this data is for demo purposes only. If I'm a CSM and these are my accounts, I might say to myself, I don't really have time to focus on everybody. So maybe I'm just going to go focus on Google and Apple. There are 72. They are my lowest scores. My scores are still really good. However, there's an opportunity to improve my relationship with Google and Apple. I better check into them and see what's going on over there. On the flip side, as a CSM, I might say, you know what? I've got a really good relationship with Microsoft. They're really happy with us. I know them really well. Maybe it's time for me to reach out for a customer spotlight or a customer testimonial, or there's an opportunity to cross-sell or upsell them new products and services and add-on products and services. So either, I as the CSM go out and make that connection, or I let the sales team know, hey, this might be an area that's ripe for an expand.
Yeah. And those plays, if you want to call it that, are definitely important, because it's one thing to have the data. It's another thing to know what to do with it and put it into action. And I do know that, a part of this is a playbook that says, if you're noticing sentiment is low or sentiment is high, what do you do about either of those things, and how can you continue to prove value and expand value and all of that. So definitely important element there. Okay, so when it comes to the data that is being, gathered and all of that, how are we gathering that data? How are we storing that data?
Yeah, so I think it's really important for people to understand that data protection and transparency is really important. It's something that we can't take back if a customer feels like we're being intrusive into their environment. I don't know if you guys remember, many, many years ago, there was like a Cambridge Analytica scandal, and they were scraping data and people were so outraged by it. But the reality is that's how a lot of research companies are getting their data, but that's not how we're doing it. We are focused on really reaching out to the customer in a proactive and transparent way. So the way this works is essentially no different than if you were going to send out a survey to your customers. The difference here is that we've written the questions for you. We've proved that the questions are correct, and we did the analysis on the back end. But the ability to collect that data is in your hands. Right now, all you have to do is log into your account, click on a survey link. We'll give you some suggestions on how to connect with your customers, how to send them this link. But at the end of the day, you own your own data, you own your own list, and you're able to reach out to those customers without us having to have access to your customer base. You also know your customers better than we ever will in terms of how they're going to respond. So if they are an email channel team, then you can send the link via email. If you have a Slack or WebEx or Microsoft Teams group with them, you're able to send that link out through that channel. If they're texters, you can send it via text. The idea here is that you can connect with your customer in the way that's going to be most impactful for you and for your customer, and continuing to build that relationship. This should be just a natural part of that conversation and not something extra that you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is also really helpful when it comes to, whenever anybody gets a cold request to fill out a survey, it's very unlikely that I'm going to fill that out. But if it's somebody that I know and a company that I recognize and a team that I'm familiar with, sending it in a much more, a much warmer way, I'm way more likely to fill out that survey, which means you get more data at the end of the day.
Well, and think about it this way. Let's say you don't have a huge customer list inside your customer. You don't have all the emails of the users who use your software, but you do have a champion inside of your customer. It could be as simple as saying, "Hey, Amber, thanks so much for being a great partner. I have loved working with you. As part of our ongoing commitment to building great relationships with our customers, we have this thing called CXi. I would love for you and for other people who enjoy using the software or are regular users of the software to fill this out for us so we can make plans to serve you better." Right? It's all about taking those opportunities to build great relationships, and asking people to take a survey and make their thoughts heard can be a piece of that. Doesn't have to be some annoying thing where you're like, I don't want to take this survey right now. You can use that to leverage your relationships and build stronger, deeper connections with your customers.
Yeah, I agree completely. So obviously this type of data is critical, not only to customer retention, but obviously customer growth and expansion, which is why so many companies use NPS and similar type things because they know that this kind of stuff is important. And so people knee jerk, they go right to that because it's known, it's proven, tried and true, all of that kind of thing. But what makes CXI different from that?
NPS did something really great and unheard of back when it first got started. It took a question that was easy to ask, easy to understand, and easy to analyze for anyone, whether you're a researcher or not. And that's what makes NPS great. NPS is also one dimensional. You're asking one thing: how likely are you to refer? And it doesn't necessarily help you dig beneath the surface, because what is the answer? What if the answer is I'm not likely to refer? There's no why after that initial answer, right? CXI is focused on helping you understand not only the what, but also the why behind it and the what now that you can do about it. So the idea is taking what NPS pioneered, which was easy to understand questions in an easy to deliver format that anybody, regardless of your research background, can do, and take it to the next level. Not only understanding what they're saying, but why they're saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do people go to learn more about this platform?
Well, we invite you to go to gotruvue.com. That's GOTRUVUE.com. We would love to chat with you, love to have you experience TruVue. And if you would like to talk with one of us, we'd be happy to do that as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Again, if anybody has any questions or more thoughts, go TruVue.com is where to go. Hope to hear from you soon.